delay. So stop your waiting.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for another episode of the Fox 12 Weather Podcast. Today is Thursday, April 11th. I'm meteorologist Jeff Orgeron, joined by meteorologist Katie Suniga. Hey Katie.
Good morning, gentlemen.
And Chief Meteorologist Mark Nelson. Welcome back, Mark.
Good morning. How you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Very good.
Yeah.
Everybody's good. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, we're all good.
Some sunshine.
We had some nice weather yesterday, some filtered sunshine out there.
Mm-hmm.
We got close to 70 degrees in the metro. It felt like 70 in that direct sunlight. That sunshine's getting stronger. I've on those walks I've been taking with my daughter, I've actually been slapping on some sunscreen. This is like equivalent to August sunshine.
That's right, like the end of August, huh?
Yeah, or almost mid-August, I guess.
Is it? Okay.
Because
you're
April 11th, yeah. So we're getting there.
We are. I got fresh lighting, too. Does I think it accentuates my jowls, my developing 55-year-old jowls here. I got bright lighting above just because this is kind of my office space. I need this a little closer. Okay, there we go. I'm going to have to get new lighting as I age.
I think Katie has the best light. I've got like I've got a ring light blasting me.
I can see the ring light in your glasses, Jeff.
I know. Hey, everybody. So, all right, here's the plan for today's podcast. Obviously, the excitement earlier this week was revolving around that total solar eclipse. Mark traveled out to Texas for that. Can't wait to hear about that. So we'll show some really cool photos. One of our viewers sent in just amazing shots. All right, and then next, we're going to talk about El Niño, how it affected the cold season, the wet season. It's kind of an unusual winter, I would say, especially in the Cascades. Not totally unusual, but maybe not totally expected the way that it played out. We'll also talk about what happened 2 years ago today. I know a lot of you remember. Actually, Katie probably doesn't because Katie was east of the Cascades.
I knew about it because I paid attention to the side of the mountain.
Yeah, well, a lot of you remember that historic late season snowstorm that impacted
Mark was
the
on
area.
vacation, of course.
Mark threw the fork up, said, "I'm out." And then we got slammed. Some of us, not everybody.
Yeah.
We're also going to go over the forecast, which includes another dose of weather whiplash, going from a warm day to cooler weather, lower snow levels. And then we'll talk about our term of the week. We're bringing that back this week for episode 97. So a lot to go through today. Let's talk about this solar eclipse. We're starting off with a great shot of Mark and his son on the DFW parking structure rooftop, I guess you could say.
Right.
Or atop the parking structure. Mark, all right. That was, the forecast, all the clouds that were, everybody was worried about. Looks like you had a pretty good day out there.
Yeah, here's the deal. As we were leading up to it, most models, all the global models for sure, were showing a pretty thick veil of high cloud cover, right? That. And then they were also showing maybe some low clouds coming up through Texas. And folks, I had texted Jeff, because Jeff, you had forecast. You were in Waco, right?
I was in Waco, for 2 years.
Yeah. And I said, what's the deal with these low clouds moving north? Is it like a marine clouds? And they were kind of showing they would break up a bit. So we landed it, for one, not to turn this into big story time, but basically we had a quick flight from Santa Fe, about an hour or so west of there, from Santa Fe that morning, arriving 2 hours before the eclipse. And we were going to fly out 2 hours after on Alaska. Nobody's paying me to say that. I just said that. But going back to Portland, and actually all the flights worked out perfectly. We had done a road trip through the Southwest as well. That's my son there. But we landed, Jeff, and I couldn't believe it. There was a patch or two of low clouds, even fewer than this shows, and there were no high clouds. So models had way overdone the high clouds across Texas. But then in the hour leading up to it, we were inside, of course. We didn't really go outside until it got closer because we thought it'd be too hot, which it wasn't. But the puffy cumulus clouds are starting to thicken up a little bit. I'd say it was cloudy half the time the sun was coming and going. And just in the last 20 seconds before the eclipse, one of those cumulus clouds passed over the sun. And you could hear this collective. You see people on the garage. Dallas has several garage roofs. And you could see people on the other one over there, and across the canyon there, you could hear no, as a thicker one passes overhead. It's no. So about the first 20 seconds, we couldn't see it. And then all of a sudden it moved away, and there it was in its glory. The white, if you've seen it before, the sun is white. There it is right there. It looked just like that. This time I had my glasses, not the eclipse glasses, but last time at Madras, I didn't have the glasses. I don't see very well in dim lighting, so I kind of missed part of it in Madras. Everything was a little blurry. This time I could see it all, and it was amazing.
So was that what you were saying? You like missed the first like 30 seconds, or it was
about 20 seconds
because the cloud went over it?
Yeah.
And that was during totality?
Yeah, just at the very beginning.
Oh, man.
But it was, I had mistimed it too at about a minute and a half. You know, in the TV business, we have pretty good timing in our head, right? We know about like what 1 minute is, or 2 minutes, or 3. And I thought in my head it was only about 2 minutes, but it seemed to go on forever. And then later my son said, Dad, it was like 3.25 minutes we're in our location. And so, yeah, it lasted longer than the Madras. Well, I say the Madras eclipse because I was there, but lasted longer than 2017. It was about the same. It was pretty darn cool. It wasn't the shock of the first time. Like, I can't believe, why is the sun white? But it was amazing. Like, planes continue to take off on both sides of us in the darkness.
So
life continued around us, which at an airport and traffic too, which was real weird.
So did you notice the cumulus clouds kind of like fizzle out a little bit? I mean, because you didn't have as much daytime heating to fuel or
right. Yeah. You know, well, it didn't. Unfortunately, it didn't really happen until I noticed at the end of the eclipse, and then in the next 10 minutes, as the sun started to come back, I'm like, oh, most of the clouds have cleared because, you know, it had cooled. It was like the sun was setting.
I saw a satellite loop, you guys, of like that 4-minute stretch or whatever, like before and after the eclipse, and you could definitely see dissipation of the cumulus clouds.
Yeah,
during
it was
time.
noticeable.
Yeah, which is really, really cool. How it definitely has an effect on the weather in a way.
And for people that see it the first time, there was a woman beside us afterwards. I go, so what did you think? It was your first time? She goes, oh, I'm still kind of weeping. And, well, I mean, she wasn't weeping, but she was still kind of, and she's probably 25 years old. She was like, it was so emotional.
Wow.
And her boyfriend's like, yeah, she was kind of crying.
It's kind of like a reminder of like how time is just passing, you know, and the next one that will cross the U.S. will be in 2020 or 2045, I believe.
44.
40, was it 44?
Actually, there's two back to back that in Montana, that first August in 44, and then the southern one.
The 45 more substantial will go through like Nevada and Northern California and so on and so. But what I was trying to say was like, we have to wait another 20 years to see something like this in the U.S.
Yep, I will be, speaking of jowls, that's 20 years is a long time. Although I do remember in the late 90s when I first was seeing that there was going to be this eclipse in 2017, like, oh, that's a long ways out. And then, you know, time goes faster than you think. I mean, it was 6.5 years since that last eclipse, and it didn't seem that far between. Much time between them.
I remember the partial in Texas.
Katie, it was great.
Did you catch the full eclipse back in 2017?
I was at KTVZ in Bend when it happened. So
you didn't have to go very far to see it.
We camped. We had trailers. I was actually in charge of the camp at the fairgrounds. And so everybody was coming and going. But what was interesting about that one for us was we had this whole week-long coverage. Every reporter, like we had been meeting for months, and everybody had everything laid out. And then a whole slew of wildfires broke out just before. And so it was supposed to be all these rotating, reporters all coming through camp. And it ended up just being me and one other person the entire week leading up because people were just scattered throughout Central Oregon. And there was a big concern because our air quality was so bad and the sky was so hazy that by the time the eclipse happened, nobody would be able to see it because the fires were so bad. Like our air quality index was 500 plus. Like it was so bad. But fortunately, as Mark knows, because he was there, it ended up being okay. But it was
kind of enhanced it a little bit because you had thin smoke here and there, added to the coloring, I suppose.
But it had gotten under control by then. So
good. So we got some amazing shots from Lester Sy, who is one of our loyal viewers of Fox 12. This was the first shot that he sent in a couple days ago. And you can definitely make out the prominences. But check these closer shots. First of all, you can see some of the action around the surface of the sun. Top at the bottom on the top left-hand corner of the screen. But look at this.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah. Oh.
And even closer.
Wow.
So thanks to Lester for sending these in. I mean, some
really
of the
good stuff.
Some of the images that folks were sharing of the eclipse were incredible. So just a cool event. And by that time, 20 or so years from now, my daughter's going to be about 20, so 21 years old. So I hope to experience it with her, and maybe we'll travel to Nevada for that.
Climatologically, northern Nevada, northern California, like Alturas, south of Lakeview, pretty darn sunny that time of the year. So I think that's what I would aim for, and I think everybody should see it once.
I was thinking, east of
If
the
you can.
Sierra would be safe.
Yes.
What time of year is it supposed to be?
Mid-August.
Oh,
Pretty darn sunny.
hopefully there
Mhm.
won't be many wildfires and the smoke and those
Mhm.
plumes, because August can be pretty sketchy.
Maybe an early Burning Man.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so that is our eclipse coverage for you. Let's go over, Mark. You had a lot of graphics that you pulled into this presentation
I sure
for
did.
this El Nino recap. Just kind of talking about how things have played out between October and February, essentially the cold season. So, Mark, I'll let you take it away.
Okay, but this time Jeff is in the driver's seat.
I am.
Katie, so Jeff is running. He's driving the graphics bus, so
Mark's
we'll
a
see
little
it.
trigger happy.
Yeah, I tend to get kind of jumpy because I don't know what's coming up. All right, so what do we have here? So I did a blog post on this last night. I have a lot of these graphics in there, but so and make sure, folks, if you are listening to this podcast, as I usually do, and don't watch it on YouTube. We have a channel there, or go to our webpage, kptv.com/weather, or we're on the app too. Yeah, well, the app will take you there as well. First Alert Weather app. All right, so this just shows the anomaly, the temperature anomaly, October through February, the whole cool season. Pretty obvious. Most of the country was above normal. It was pretty well known, right? But in the Northwest, it was kind of a mix of average to above average for the winter, for the cool season. That's October through February. So this is like a graphic maybe I showed in my when I did kind of my outlook in October for what might we see during a moderate to strong El Nino winter. We weren't sure if it was going to be a moderate or strong El Nino. And this is precipitation in the past moderate to strong El Nino winters. So this was, October through March. Some of these say October through February. We don't have all of the March data in yet. But you can see there's kind of a classic, if there's such a thing as a classic El Nino signature, that would be it. We tend to be a little drier Pacific Northwest up into BC, drier than normal. We tend to be wetter than normal in California. That's kind of the average of all these years. That's quite a few years there, you notice? Yeah. So that's what we typically see on precip. Now, what did we have this year? Interesting. So Washington was drier than normal. This is October through February. California was normal to a little above normal. So maybe California wasn't as wet as some El Ninos, right? But also interesting is look how the wetness basically moved a little farther north.
Yeah.
You see that there? So Oregon, a good chunk of Oregon was a little wetter than normal, whether it was white or wet, rain. And then I think the next graphic here, Jeff, does that show? Yes. Okay. So this shows just the three kind of super El Ninos, 82, 83, 97, 98, and 15, 16. And notice in those, the signature is a little bit different. Notice how I think it's because in these really strong El Ninos, the subtropical jet really surges north more often, and we get warmer and wetter than normal. And you see, look how wet it is all the way up to Washington. So I would argue, excuse me, I'd argue that we were kind of a mix. If you go back to,
Sure.
Actually one, or this year. There, yeah. That maybe because this was an extra strong El Nino, in the end it was strong by normal, the ONI measurements, that maybe we had a little bit, and we kind of saw this more of the subtropical jets, so we ended up a little wetter than normal. Is that maybe a possibility? Reasonable analysis, maybe?
I think so.
Yeah, so, a little wetter than normal, but drier than normal across Washington. What else do I have in there? Oh, yeah, so we had a wet water year. So, yeah, look at just Portland. So October and November were dry, but then very wet. December, January, and February. And we haven't returned to dry until March, and April so far is drier than normal. And Jeff is going to take a look coming up here, but it looks like we don't have excessively wet weather coming up in April either. Okay, we're all over. Can you back up?
Yeah, I'll back up.
Are we going to cover this more? Okay, so this just shows the water year, which we'll get into a little bit later in more detail. But so far, if you go back to October 1st, we are well above normal. So obviously, once we add in the rainfall all the way through September, we're going to have another wet water year, which is good, right?
Yeah, I think so. Let's see. This kind of shows the water year, which we're going to talk more about later on, but we're definitely entering the drier months at this point.
Yeah, so I would say we're now in the drier half of the year, which is April. If you take 6 months, it's 6 months, April through September. We're the drier part of the year now, whereas the wetter part of the year is October through March. So we kind of made it, folks. We're into the drier part of the year.
Yeah.
Okay, what else do we have? Oh, yeah, snowfall. All right, so You look at this. This is just December through February, and I showed this used this graphic in my weather blog, probably on the air too, back in October when I said, hey, here's what we're thinking could happen this winter. December through February snowfall, the peak time for skiing when everybody wants to hit the slopes, by Christmas. And then January and February, all the ski schools, that's like typically the best time. Not always, but typically the best time. That's kind of when the interest is highest. So I'm like, okay, what's a snowfall like at government camp? And you take all these El Nino winters, whether they're weak or strong, and notice some years are, we really get skunked. 09, 10, 14, 15 wasn't so great. 04, 05 wasn't good. 02, 03 wasn't very good during that time. Typically, we get about 132 inches. And you look at this year and look at that. Oh my gosh, we got 181 inches at government camp. I didn't go farther back in time, but clearly this is the most, I should say, December through February snowfall in an El Nino winter since sometime in the 1990s, I assume. I didn't go farther back.
Contrast that to 2014, 2015.
That was a terrible year.
Really
so was 04, 05. Those 2 years and 04, 05 are known as like really the total ski season terrible. And then April 1st snowpack. Look at that. We're around average or above average across just about the whole state. And it's heaviest to the south because of those California storms that nick, southern Oregon and then over into Idaho. So this is great. Those really dry parts of Oregon, Lake County, Harney County, Malheur County, often we have drought issues there pretty regularly, I guess. And this will be really good. That's going to really fill the reservoirs as the snow melts and groundwater.
I actually updated some of these numbers yesterday. So Mark is showing the start of April right here. But Northeast Oregon is actually in the green now.
Oh, they are now.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
That's
I
good.
have a question about the previous slide we're
Sure.
talking about here.
Let's pull it up.
So you were saying that this is December through February, but could we maybe more say, even though December's counted, was more January and February because we really didn't get much in December?
Well, here's the deal. That's a good question. Because I've got something to add to that. So my point was, it looks great, right? Look at all that December snowfall. And sure enough, we look at government, and skiers know this, but look at government camp. At the end of the month, very bottom, the sum, 36.5 inches. That was only maybe 15 inches below average. But here's the problem this winter, and this happens in El Nino winters. We had that big dumping of snow the first 2-3 days of December. Snow depth was up to 14 inches at government camp. It was much more higher up. And then look what happened. Pineapple Express, washout.
Yeah.
Goes to 0. Then 8 inches on the 8th of December. Okay, we're going to start building the base again. Nope. Warm stuff again, goes to 0. And except for 5 inches on the ground at Christmas Eve, remember, Ski Bowl could not open. There was very little terrain open all through the month of December. So we had a Pineapple Express, and that washed away basically 36 inches of snow for the month. Yet on New Year's Eve, there's no snow on the ground. So the big number, and then look, do we have January? Yeah, then January. Oh, it disappeared.
Something happened here. Let's see what's going on.
The black screen of death.
Yeah, let's see if we can
So,
get that back
well,
up.
he's working on that. So, what'd you say? 38 inches in December, but
36,
it was
yeah.
36. But the total for December through February was 180.
180, yep.
180. So you do the math. That's quite a bit more after December, even with that nice snow that we got at the beginning.
Yeah.
That's
So
what I
then
was
we go to
thinking.
January.
Doing my best
We'll
to
get
get back there. Yeah.
Jeff
There
is rapidly hitting the right.
I think our
the
network went
right
down
arrow.
or something. Yeah.
Oh, that was weird.
Yeah.
Because you're playing it off the network. Okay.
Exactly. All right. So this is January. This is December.
December.
We're
Let's go to
jumping-
January. This is January stats
go.
for government camp. And of course, we had the huge increase. Oh, by the way, I think that was the lowest snowpack on record as of January, like the 3rd or 4th or 5th, right there. There was only 1 or 2 inches on the ground in Govey. Then a huge dumping of snow. So then there's a little over 4 feet of snow on the ground at government camp by the 12th. That's when we had the big cold air come in here in the lowlands. And it kind of lingers near there, 40 or 50 inches. And it's pretty good. But then look at what happens near the end of the month. There's no snow after the 19th. From the 19th through the end of January, there's no snow up there. We had rain. Look at the precipitation. There was rain. And so we go from 52 inches down to 30 inches at the end of January. In fact, by the first week of February, there was only 14. I don't have another graphic for that.
I got it.
But by the first week of February, there was only 14 inches of snow on the ground at government camp again. And so we were back down in the same situation. So there's a second Pineapple Express event there. So the problem is, yes, we had, and finally in late February, there was enough snow. Once again, everything was in good shape, and we kind of finished out the season, late February to mid-March was okay up there. But man, what a challenging skiing season. remember when we had the big snow in January, huge power issues up there. There was too much snow at once and then high winds and then some freezing rain. And I remember one of the Mount Hood Meadows managers said at one point it was the most challenging December and early January he'd ever seen.
Well,
So,
and then they
there was
couldn't
snow.
open.
It came at the wrong times
Yeah.
and then it was washed out by rain a couple times. So really challenging El Nino winter.
I was gonna say the guy said that he remember listening to him. He said it couldn't open in January because there wasn't enough snow, and then they couldn't open in or December because there wasn't enough snow, and then like January, February they couldn't open because there was too much and the conditions were bad, and so it was like the extremes in both directions.
It was just a really tough
So
season.
weird.
In the end, the snowpack, we're okay, but wow, a weird year. And I think that's Jeff, what you were alluding to at the beginning of the podcast when you said it was kind of a strange winter that way. But El Ninos, they do some weird stuff often.
So I think like maybe something that we can conclude is in these stronger El Nino events, we get more of a subtropical jet stream focusing farther north. But because it maybe is more wavy at times, we can see warm events, rainy events in the Cascades, then we dry out for periods of time, and then all of a sudden we can get a cold surge. So there's more undulation, if you will.
I think so. Some El Ninos we just tend to be drier, though. We wouldn't have as many weather systems. Maybe we wouldn't get the big snow dumps in many El Nino years. So.
And just also to kind of recap a little bit more, yesterday I was talking about where we stand right now in terms of like where we are this spring and how this may compare to previous springs. If you think about back in 2021, we experienced our driest spring on record. That led into a very hot summer. We had extreme fire danger. And I think last year at this time, we had not even hit 70 degrees yet. So, but our snowpack was in really good shape last year as well. We had a lot more rain, I think. But I think we're standing pretty well, like in terms of like where, that we're facing summertime now. It's only a couple of months away. Rainfall has been healthy, west of the Cascades especially. Snowpack is in pretty good shape for an El Nino year. So I think we could be in much worse shape, being only a couple of months away from summertime.
Everything's okay right now.
The hope is that we don't have a long stretch of dry weather and highs in the 80s and 90s that would, essentially dry out our vegetation really quickly.
Right.
And I really don't see that necessarily coming anytime soon. So let's talk about what was happening 2 years ago today. Man, that was, well, first of all, Mark was, I think, in Europe somewhere, if I'm not mistaken.
It was on a cruise with terrible internet coverage, and I was freaking out. I wanted to know what was going on.
It was a challenging forecast. We saw, from what I remember, chances for snow in the lowlands, much cooler air coming in, but it was very difficult to determine how much snow was coming. It wasn't a very cold air mass. I mean, we're now at mid-April at that time, April 11th, but we had some heavy precipitation in the forecast. So this is a photo, if you're listening, we're showing a photo here of a tree that was kind of weighed down by heavy snow. Obviously, April 11th, you have a lot more foliage on the trees. So the combination of heavy wet snow and the foliage created some problems, especially during that morning commute. I was kind of chatting with Tony about it this morning, and he said he tries not to remember that or think back to that moment. So, Mark, you have included some surface pressure charts here to kind of highlight the incoming low pressure systems that created this mess.
Yeah, so I'll go through these pretty quickly, but this was just the 500 millibar map.
Oh, is this the 500 millibar?
Well, I have both.
Oh, okay.
I have both. I got both there.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't just stick to one level, Jeff. All right, so there was an upper level trough dropping down the BC coastline. Right. Sometimes this can bring us snow in the winter, but okay, so this was it happened on a Monday morning, if I'm correct, yes?
So this is Sunday
afternoon, upper level trough dropping down the coastline. Let's go to the next one. Then by Monday morning, 7 a.m., when it's snowing in Portland, there's an upper level low directly over us, probably big speed max in there just to the south. So what that did is that spun up an extremely deep area of low pressure. This was a bomb cyclone that morning.
I don't think you have the...
No, that's okay. We're getting there. So
okay.
This is Monday, and then on Tuesday, then that has moved off to the east, and then a second one is approaching from the northwest, which kept the cold showers going on Tuesday and Wednesday afterwards, after the big events on Monday. So we still had close to sea level snow at times Tuesday and I think on Wednesday.
Yep.
All right, there's Wednesday there. So by that time, we're back to just chilly stuff, and there's snow in the foothills. But so basically upper level trough swings in. So look at this. Sunday afternoon, 1,014 millibar low is moving through that where the big upper level low is swinging south. So it's about to deepen really rapidly. So this is at 2 p.m. Sunday. It's west of the coastline. Look what happens. I don't have the intervening map, but look at Monday morning at 7 a.m. Wow, it went from 1,014 to 993 while passing across northern Oregon. That by itself is a pretty rare event. So really dynamic, huge amount of lifting on the north and the northwest side of that low as it goes by. So yeah, that was a bomb cyclone. On the north side of the low was just cold enough with intense precip that we got snow. In fact, I remember our graph was showing like 3, 4, or 5 inches of snow in Portland. You guys, I wasn't forecasting, of course, but I'm sure you were thinking, as I would too, like, that seems unlikely. How is that going to happen, right? You were kind of doubtful, right?
It was like, this is going to be borderline. It's just where, I mean, a matter of 2 to 3 degrees would have changed this entirely, right?
It's
in
all
one
about,
way or the other.
It had to dump really hard. It really had to dump precipitation very heavy to get the precip to stay as snow all the way down. But look at the WRF model. I mean, it pretty much nailed it. In Central and North Metro, it says a few inches of snow. It says the West Hills could be up around 6, 8 inches. And that kind of happened. 1.2 inches of rain that day. Precip, I should say. Precip. So it was a soaker.
Liquid precipitation.
Yeah.
If it's all snow, we're talking 8 to 14 inches of snow, potentially, right?
And so then I think we have a snowfall map.
Got a couple.
Where'd you find that one?
Back
That's different than the one I have because it's more correct.
Back in the archives. Yeah.
Oh, because the one I had, the Corbett one, was different. Okay, so yeah.
Actually, you know what? I think I found this, if I'm not mistaken, I found it on your old blog post. I can't remember. Yeah.
Okay, that was it. So yes, West Hills, 6, 8 inches of snow. A whole bunch of snow up there. Officially 1.6 at the lowest elevation at the Weather Service office, but there was widespread 1 to 3 inches across
which is significant on those,
on
leafy
April 11th.
trees. Yeah.
Yeah.
But look at this.
Yeah, 5, 6 inches of snow orchards, Hazeldale, Camas, 7. That may have been higher elevation, but 3 inches battleground. Yeah, you get in the hills, 14 inches at Vernonia. I had 11 inches at my house here. Had some like rhododendrons broken. So yeah, that gave us the latest measurable snowfall that day, 1.6 inches. Now I kind of debated with the Weather Service the next day. I had an argument with them because I think the low the next day was only like 37 degrees. They said, well, there was snow mixed in with the hail and snow pellets, or whatever it was at the same time. So whatever. But the real snow was on April 11th.
Everybody will remember April 11th, not April 12th. But yeah, grapple is snow technically, right?
So we know now, because that was always a joke in my career up until that time, was like, it can snow in April. And it had happened once, like in the 1960s, a very light amount. But that was always a joke, like, it can snow in April, but it never snows in April. And so now I know that'll be the joke for the next 30 years. It's like, it can snow in April, and it probably won't happen again. Everything has to be just right. I mean, what's the chance of getting that low in that exact position? Notice it didn't snow at Salem or Eugene or farther down the valley.
It was the perfect storm. The perfect April storm. This is a photo. I was standing outside with my daughter yesterday showing her the tulips, like the first time ever seeing tulips. But this was 2 years ago. The same tulips essentially were snow covered. You don't really see this very often. So I think I'll always think back to that latest snow on record, measurable snow on record, and I'll just think about those tulips that were covered in snow in my front yard.
You're going to be the old man saying, I remember when it snowed in April.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. And I will always remember that darn heat wave in June 2021 as well.
Yeah.
Those two kind of stand out.
Weren't you gone then too, Mark?
No, I was here.
You were? Okay.
The big
I thought I
heat
heard
wave?
you were
Oh, no.
on that one.
No, I was here.
That was bad. Okay. Weather whiplash. What do we mean by that? Well, we mean ups and downs, roller coaster rides in terms of the temperatures and the weather pattern. And we're kind of facing that between this weekend and early next week. I figure this is a weather podcast, so we might as well talk a little bit about the forecast too.
Good idea.
So,
look, we got an animation.
So
Have
this
we
is
had
a
satellite animation lately? I don't think so. That's pretty good, Jeff.
Infrared satellite imagery showcasing the ridge kind of getting nudged off to the southeast and a cold front approaching, area of low pressure developing over the northeast Pacific Ocean. And this front is going to pivot into our part of the Pacific Northwest, west of the Cascades, between the late afternoon and evening. So if you're watching this Thursday afternoon, expect some rain, light rain Thursday evening into Thursday night, and then it'll probably taper off Friday morning. So figured we'll show some upper level charts for the forecast here.
There we go. Look at those beautiful colors, the reds and the cool colors in the dip in the jet.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
This is upper level heights, 500 millibar chart showing the upper level low early Friday morning, basically tonight into Friday morning. The system is going to be developing offshore the Pacific Northwest, and it's going to be working its way to the southeast. There you go.
There it is.
Ooh, look at that cutoff low. What do you think about that, Katie? You got something to say about cutoff lows, don't you?
Cutoff lows, weather person woes.
Well, you said weatherman woe before.
But you corrected me.
I said, well, you better say weather person. Yeah.
That's the original saying was cutoff low,
Yeah.
weatherman woe, but you know.
Well, break that down. What do you mean by that? Why is it such a problem for
Katie.
forecasting?
Put me on the spot here.
No, just a quick little explanation of what you're thinking.
Well, okay, so you guys you probably understand more about this than I do because I'm the least, at least seasoned of you.
Oh, you know all about those wandering things.
Yeah, well, I mean, that I'm just going to try and keep it basic because I don't want to make myself sound stupid. But the way that I understand it is that, when they detach from the main jet stream, that's exactly what you said. They're just wandering. And so they can linger longer, they can move more unpredictably. And then when we're not at it, but that northern part of California kind of getting some of those wraparound showers, they're just kind of like spraying a hose and just wherever it lands, it lands. So that just makes it really tricky because they're not attached to the main jet stream and flowing with everything kind of in a somewhat predictable pattern. They're just kind of like willy-nilly.
Yeah. You nailed it. I mean, that's exactly it. Yeah, it's cut off low. It just wanders around. In fact, Southern Oregon going to get showers this weekend. And I looked at our graph. I see it's got thunder showers up in Bend Saturday afternoon.
Yeah,
maybe
actually,
Eugene.
Tomorrow afternoon, we should probably make mention there's a moderate risk for, not moderate, excuse me, marginal risk, level 1 out of 5.
Watch it.
Not that high. Level 1 out of 5 severe risk for Eastern Oregon. So there could be some fairly large hail and some damaging wind gusts with any severe thunderstorms that develop. So that's Friday afternoon. But we're showing you the upper level pattern here Saturday. And yeah, kind of just to highlight what Katie was talking about, great explanation there. This low pressure system is going to kind of meander. It'll meander into California and the Great Basin. It'll be over California and Nevada, essentially. And some of those wraparound showers are creating some havoc in our forecast. So, I think Saturday, kind of going back to that upper pattern, we're going to have a fairly warm day as long as there aren't too many clouds in the sky. So we're expecting maybe filtered sunshine Saturday, warmer conditions. But then Sunday, all of a sudden, we might see a few showers sneak west of the Cascades.
What? That's
maybe.
new.
A shower chance.
I just woke up, folks.
Just a shower chance. A little more cloud cover.
I just made a big deal out of a dry weekend. What?
I would expect a mainly dry weekend, Mark. I'm not talking about
I know how that, Jeff, I'm in on the club. I know how that works. You just switched from dry to a mainly dry weekend. I know how that works. So that's the little wiggle room.
Yeah,
come on,
I'm in on the. Yeah, I did put mainly
here.
dry. I may even have shower chance in there. Yeah.
Oh. So, okay, Jeff, I have a quick question for you. When this cutoff started showing up a couple days ago, and so I was off yesterday and I'm off today, so I haven't looked at anything. One model was showing on Saturday, the 850s were like at 15, and then another one was showing like -3.
15?
Yeah.
Wait, the ensembles? One of the ensemble members was showing 15?
Maybe
or?
operational.
Maybe it was operational. I don't remember which one off the top of my head, but one of them was showing, and Drew and I were there, and we were just laughing because they were so far off. Have they gotten closer?
Yes, they're in much better agreement now.
Maybe
both,
plus 10.
It's looking like
Saturday.
7 to 10. So I assume that it'd be around 8 or 9. So what Katie's talking about, if you're brand new to the podcast, we look at what the kind of the mid-level temperatures are going to be in the atmosphere, about 5,000 feet. And it looks like Saturday we're going to have some pretty warm air just above us, which could translate to highs in the 70s. If we were closer to a 10 degrees Celsius temperature at 5,000 feet, we may be closer to 75, 78 degrees, but we're thinking 72, 74 for Saturday seems reasonable. So I kept our forecast. It looks like it's going to hold up.
Okay. Now, when is this? What time is this?
So this is Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is Sunday's upper level chart. Probably a bit cooler, a bit more cloud cover. Yes, maybe a shower chance, but I would expect mainly dry weather Sunday. But yeah,
isn't there more onshore flow Sunday? That was the issue too.
Yeah, there is. So low to I think mid 60s seem reasonable for Sunday. in the lowlands west of the Cascades. But then all of a sudden, here comes the weather whiplash that we were talking about. Upper level, low, and inside slider, perhaps.
Yep.
Moving in Monday into Tuesday.
Oh, that's chilly.
And
that's
going to
not
bring
January.
That's going to bring, yeah, right. That's going to bring some colder air. And what does that mean for the snow levels?
Boom, boom, boom.
Look at that roller coaster ride. Diving down on between Sunday night and Monday morning, we could have a snow level down to about 2,000 feet between Monday and Tuesday. So I could see coldest times of the day, some snow accumulating at government camp, sticking at least, and then maybe melting during the day, hopefully with that stronger sun. But yeah, that also equates to maybe some foothill snow. So yeah, it's going to be chilly out there. We're going to go from the low to mid 70s to the 60s Sunday, and then all of a sudden mid 50s or so Monday and Tuesday. This is the national blend of models temperature outlook, kind of blending a bunch of computer models together. So yeah, anytime we get sunshine now, you'll want to get out there and enjoy it because it could be followed by a cooler stretch, and that's what we're anticipating early next week. Any thoughts, anybody?
Well, I unfortunately am going to be right in the middle of that cutoff low on Saturday, so I will not be here enjoying the 72-degree weather. I will be in the midst of my cousin's getting married in Northern California.
Okay.
Right under the showers.
Right under the
Oh,
showers.
no.
Right?
Oh, no.
Seriously, I've been watching the forecast, and the only time it's supposed to be nasty is the day of our wedding.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Hopefully it's an indoor wedding.
The ceremony was supposed to be outside and the reception inside, but I told her,
have a
in
plan
my
B.
experience, always have a plan B, and so she does. But
good.
Yeah.
Wanted to also show the precipitation outlook. Two different ensemble groups. This is the European ensemble outlook, and I know a lot of us are thinking, when can we expect the next dry stretch with some warmer conditions? Well, kind of just jumping back really quick, it's pretty obvious that things are going to gradually warm up mid to late week of next week. Uncertainty as to how warm it could get. Some models are warmer than others. But if we look at the precipitation outlook, the European ensemble members are suggesting that maybe Wednesday morning through perhaps the weekend?
End of next week.
End of next week, we could have some nice dry weather. And then the GFS has potentially a longer stretch of dry weather. It gets a little bit more uncertain late next week. But I think Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, that seems reasonable for drier weather and maybe heading into the weekend as well.
Yeah, it looks good later next week for outside. Yep.
All right, so we kind of talked about the term of the week. We mentioned it a little while ago. You probably didn't catch it, but our term of the week this week is water year. I was talking about this yesterday on Good Day Oregon. The water year. Does anybody else want to break this down?
Yeah, you know what? I have to, Jeff, because I did this during the 10 and the 11 o'clock shows last night. Every once in a while, I have this spark of inspiration. I'm like, why am I talking about water? You're explaining it without a graphic to back it up. And I just made this.
Blasphemous.
So do you have, can you go, it's probably too far. You don't have the other version that you showed earlier, or do you? Or is it too, we'd have to go back through 20 graphics. Basically, what we do, let's not belabor this.
Yeah.
Basically, our typical rainfall is for each wet year is split in the calendar. If you just have a normal calendar, January through December, it's wet at the beginning of the year, it's wet at the end of each calendar year. And those are really two different wet seasons, right? You're finishing one in the spring, you're starting a new wet season in the fall. So everywhere in the West, we use the water year because water is critical. I just traveled across the West. It's amazing how little of the West is wet. It's really right along the coastline where we live. Everywhere else is pretty arid, and water is a big deal. So what we do is we start the precipitation accounting October 1st each year and go through the next spring. I mean, it actually goes through a year, but the point is by this way, then you group the whole wet season into one year, and that's called the water year. So I got that circled there.
October 1st to September 30th, to simplify.
And the bulk of it in our climate is going to be, October 1st to March, right?
Right.
So, so it's just a convenient way of grouping our wet seasons together. Was it a wet season or was it a dry wet season?
So whenever you hear the water year now, just think it starts October 1st, it goes for a year, it ends September 30th, and it resets again. And we start recording and watching it build up again, the rainfall.
Let the record show. The graphic I made last night, it has a neat little move. Jeff, did you see it? It starts with the calendar year, and then it all goes like this and switches.
Huh.
So, folks, you aren't seeing the whole enchilada here, let's say, because there's movement, and it shows how we adjust the year.
This is just a taco.
Imagine.
We don't have the
this
whole
is just the
enchilada
taco.
here.
This is
Yeah.
not the sopapilla.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So there we go. Good stuff there.
Now I really want Mexican food.
Mm-hmm.
It's still early in the day. Maybe later.
No, it's never too early for Mexican
True.
food.
True. Breakfast burrito time. Yeah.
That's what we had this morning.
There you go. Great podcast, guys. Great to see you both. And Katie, I'll be in for you this weekend while you
Yes.
travel to California.
That's right. Jeff is working the
Yeah.
weekend.
Yep. I'm gonna cover some weather, that cutoff
Yep.
flow. It'll be fun. It'll be
Yeah.
chaotic forecasting for that cutoff flow, but no, it'll be fine. Yeah, take advantage of Saturday. It's gonna be a great day. We cool down Sunday into Monday, and of course, sometime midweek of next week, we're gonna be back with another podcast. We always appreciate you joining us for the Fox 12 Weather Podcast, and we'll be back soon. Talk to you soon.
So stop your waiting and hesitating.